My life's most defining moment came in October of 1986. The events leading up to that moment actually started 8 years earlier when I sold a life insurance policy on a newborn baby boy named Judd. His father was so proud of his son that he must have thought that no one had ever had a baby before. The father had purchased life insurance on his life and on the life of his wife, so he understood the importance of having a life insurance policy on his son that would grow in value with guaranteed insurability options so that when his son got older, he could have insurance for his own family. I placed a $15,000 policy in force. It had a premium of $200. The commission was about $100. By the time Judd was 2 years old, something was terribly, terribly wrong. Judd was sick, and the doctors couldn't figure out why. Judd's mom and dad took him to pediatric specialists all over the state of Texas and then all over the United States of America. But even they could not help Judd's parents. The medical bills soon began to pile up, and they were having to spend over $100,000 per year on Judd's care. And Judd's parents did not know what to do. One of their doctors came to him and said that he had arranged for the little boy's case to be a topic of study at an international symposium of pediatric neurologists in Copenhagen, Denmark. Finally, someone would be able to give Judd's parents definitive news. But it was not good news. Judd had a neurological disorder that affected about 1 in every 100 million people. This disease was so rare that there were only about 20 cases that had ever been documented. And it was terminal. It was always terminal. The doctor told Judd's parents they weren't sure what his life expectancy would be, but it would probably be about the age of 5. Judd died in October of 1986, 3 weeks after his 8th birthday. At that time, I had never had a life claim before, a death claim. So I asked one of my good friends in the office if he would help me, and he said sure he would. He got the paperwork ready, and he submitted everything to the insurance company, and about 3 weeks later, he invited me out to lunch. And somewhere over lunch, he stared out the window for a long, long time, and then he looked back and he said, "Marvin, when I get a response to that death claim, what do you want me to do with it?" I thought for a minute, and I said, "Well, just give it to me." He reached in his pocket and he took out an envelope and he slid it across the table. It had the insurance company name on the outside of the envelope, and I recognized it. So I opened the envelope. When I read what was inside that envelope, I began to cry. Inside the envelope was a check in the settlement of a life insurance claim on the life of an 8-year-old boy named Judson Patrick Walker, payable to me, his father, Judson Marvin Walker. After a few minutes, I looked up at my friend and I thanked him for his help. He went back to the office and I went to the bank. I had to deposit that check. I had bills to pay. I had to pay for the cemetery plot. I had to pay for the casket. I had to pay for the headstone. I had to pay the funeral director. When the funeral was over, Debbie and I took a week-long trip to be alone and just to spend some time together. The life insurance allowed us to do all those things. Had it not been for the life insurance, I'm sure that we still would have had a funeral for Judd. It would have been hard to find the money to pay the funeral director, but we would have found it. And I could have bought a cheaper cemetery plot. The ones out by the fence were a lot less expensive than the ones under the beautiful oak tree. I could have bought a cheaper casket. I'm sure that they were just as good. And I could have bought a smaller headstone. It didn't need all that much engraving on it. Debbie and I could have stayed home for a few days. We didn't have to go on a week-long trip. That really wasn't necessary. But because we had the insurance money, Debbie and I were able to celebrate Judd's life and to celebrate his death in the way that we wanted to. The defining moments in my life. I finally understood what being a professional life insurance agent was all about. Let me tell you what it's not about.